Liberation greetings to all and sundry, my people of the southern Cameroons, brave warriors of our liberation movement, dear Amazonians. Today is January 6th, 2022. My people are come today for us to have a conversation and together draw some very important lessons from the recent outing of the former U.S. Undersecretary at the Bureau of African Affairs at the U.S. State Department, Honorable Tibor Nagy. He had a very interesting and very insightful conversation with our comrade Chris Anu. And let me begin by heartily congratulating comrade Chris Anu for lifting that beautiful feat of bringing this international diplomat with a track record of service in Cameroon and other parts of Africa to come share a moment with us, talk about the situation in the southern Cameroons, bring us his own insights, criticize us where he thinks that we are not doing things right, and cast his own views on, what an international negotiation into the situation in the southern Cameroons or Amazonia will look like. And so, in this discussion today, we are going to look at some parts of his utterances on that broadcast with Mr. Chris Anu. And the analysis I'm going to bring on this platform regarding this outing is going to be in three parts. So today will be part one. We'll examine some key issues raised today. In the next broadcast, we will examine yet other facets. And then in the last broadcast on this particular issue, we will take an overall message home from that conversation. Of course, I know that right now, a lot of us are already getting inundated with low energy, as usual, coming from some quarters, where the preference generally is to attack the messenger and not to pay attention to the message brought in by this messenger. I want to make this first of all clear here. Honorable Tibor Nagy is not a Southern Cameroonian. He is not an African. He is a U.S. diplomat. And so, if he decides to take time off to talk about the situation in the Southern Cameroons, share his views with us, and also give us what he considers his own piece of advice as far as our intention to prosecute the liberation movement all the way to the end and ensure that we have a free Southern Cameroons, aka Amazonia, then we need to give him part of the back. We need to congratulate and thank him. And therefore, what people around the world generally do when they have people from other spheres talk about the things that are happening around them, they determine to draw lessons from what they say and see how to fix what needs to be fixed and dump what was said that perhaps was not necessary or doesn't contribute in advancing our cause one way or the other. I will always be against anyone rather attacking the person of someone who volunteers to come to talk about the situation, befalling us in our land. So, my people, settle down, fasten your seatbelts. You can get a drink if you're taking. In my case, I'll be taking some water so that we get into this very important broadcast. So don't go away, because we are going to begin by paying some little attention to the AFCON, the so-called AFCON that La République du Cameroon is insisting on hosting in Amazonia. Of course, we all heard the news from Victoria. I think that news generally sent the already terrified Cameroon government more erratic. And so that is why we have this now coming on. I have this press release, or call it radio announcement before me. This is issued by the Colonial Senior Divisional Officer for FACO. And then he says, the Senior Divisional Officer for FACO informs the general public that from January 5, that's beginning yesterday, to January 28, 2022, circulation of bikes within the central town Limbe FACO division is hereby prohibited, as well as movements on main roads from, in short, he gives a certain number of axes, and all of the axes that he raises or that he mentions here are axes that really lead to the stadium in Geme. And so he says bikes will not be allowed to circulate on days that matches will be played in Limbe. So this divisional officer actually calls for ghost towns. And I would say this is the color of defeat, because the Africa Cup of Nations is supposed to be a feast, what they call it, a football feast. It's supposed to be celebration. And when the AFCON comes to a city, the business community is supposed to tap maximum benefit from it, because business activities have to boom. The people coming from other countries to witness the matches should have the opportunity to go around, explore the city, enjoy. A good lot of them should even be tourists who are coming to have a feel of the city and then spend their money. But now we have a situation where rather every place will be closed up, where the people are even barred from movements and all whatnot. And so this indicates, therefore, that the focus at this can is not going to be the AFCON. It's not going to be football. It's not going to be which player is so wonderful, or which European-based player did not make it, or who is going to emerge man of the tournament, or who is going to be this. No, the talk of this entire period is definitely going to be the situation in the southern Cameroons. So my people, this is what I call a color, a clear-cut color of defeat. And so my people of the southern Cameroons, we are on a good footing. We are on a good track. Sometimes they feel that they are doing something at all costs because they want to challenge us, because they want to prove to us that we are no people, and because they want to tell the world that we are firmly in control. But I think the world is going to have the opportunity to see for themselves exactly what measure of control La République du Cameroon has in Limbe and, or rather in Victoria and in FACO County. Of course, we heard Ambassador Cohen say something, and according to him, I believe that he thought he was doing some favor for La République du Cameroon. But it's a very interesting statement he made there, because this tournament is going to give the opportunity for the rest of the world to have a real feel of the situation on the ground in FACO. And that's not just all. It's not only about FACO, it's also even across the Mungo that you will recognize that this AFCON, far from being able to unify, because football, sports, has really been a unifier in that triangle. Before, football has been that kind of thing that will cause people to say, no, temporarily set aside our grievances and misunderstandings and all whatnot, and rally around. But this is not the case with this particular AFCON. That is why over in the littoral, we have the divisional officer for Douala 1. Douala 1, yes, that's in the littoral, over there in La République du Cameroun. He is saying that the proposed demonstration by the SDF, the Social Democratic Front, championed by Jean-Michel Nincho, that demonstration, that march, which sanctifies the existence of democracy in a country, that march is banned. Banned. We have seen situations where great sovereigns, heads of state, or international meetings are going to cities around the world, and usually what obtains is the officials generally give authorization. They give approval for those, demonstrations, because they're too often peaceful in nature, just allowing people to carry placards, to carry out their messages, their grievances, and display them for everyone to see that there are some people who are not happy, they are dissatisfied because this or that thing is happening, and all or not, in the pious hope that at the end of it all, something will be done to alleviate some of the issues or to address some of the issues being raised by the protesters. But hell no, that is not the case for La République du Cameroun. The erratic government of La République du Cameroun sees in any of these kind of movements an attempt to wrest power from their prince, from their mumie, Mr. Paul Biya. And so that is why the deal of Douala 1, he says that the match planned by Jean-Michel Nincho for January 8, 2022 is simply banned. And I'm not surprised, though. We expected this. But at the same time, I've been told that Honorable Jean-Michel Nincho, who is a real MP, take note about real MP, a real representative of his people, who generally listens to the cries of his people, who understands the worries and the aspirations of his people, and functions according to that, is determined to move ahead. So it promises to be a very interesting moment in Douala on Saturday. It promises to be a very interesting moment. And already you can expect that the various delegations that have already trooped into Douala for the AFCON will be asking themselves if it is the right decision that they made to get to the place, because the entire place is belted, dark, with the kind of people who are supposed to be, barracks somewhere and waiting to watch beautiful football. Rather, there's a lot of, restrictions on movements and things like that and all whatnot. Even the night economy that usually thrives as a result of the organization of an AFCON in various countries is going to suffer a hit, rather. So, overall, this AFCON is not really for the citizens of La République du Cameroun. It's simply to enable Mr. Paul Biya prove a point. Simply to enable Mr. Paul Biya to say, I also organized an AFCON. Otherwise, there is nothing in it to show that this is that kind of continental feast that everyone looks forward to. And so we will have an eye on Douala on Saturday to see exactly how the drama unfolds at that place. And so while that was going on, there is at least a controversy emerging within the ranks of the Social Democratic Front. A clear indication that because of its policy vis-a-vis the quest of the people of the Southern Cameroons for total freedom, for untainted freedom, for total self-determination, the SDF continues to descend into the abyss. Because you now see O.C. Joshua, who is the vice national chairman of the party, get at variance with Jean-Michel Nincho and the base in Douala, where he, O.C., is also MP. Look at his statement here. He says, dans le même ordre d'idées, notre hospitalité légendaire ne doit pas être entachée par des manifestations partisanes. Et nous demandons à ceux qui pensent que cet événement soit une opportunité pour la désobéissance civile de s'abstenir de telles actions jusqu'à la fin de cette fête. Ce n'est pas la Coupe d'Afrique des Nations de M. Biya, c'est notre Coupe d'Afrique qui est en jeu. Look at this. He says, as a matter of fact, he believes that if Cameroonians, he's talking about Cameroonians, not Southern Cameroonians, have grievances, a lot of things they are not satisfied about, a lot of things they are worried about and all whatnot, they should keep these grievances aside. They should set everything aside first and allow for the football feast to be a wonderful feast, because it is not Mr. Paul Biya's tournament, it is the Cameroonian AFCON, which is at stake here. That the people's legendary hospitality needs to be shown. But he fails to understand at the same time that what Jean-Michel Nincho is talking about is that a people cannot pretend to be happy when they are not. A people cannot pretend to be all right when they are not. A people cannot pretend that all is well when they don't have electricity, when they don't have potable water to drink, when they don't have good roads to circulate on, when a good lot of them, for merely raising their voices to ask for electoral reform, find themselves in jail and are marshaled before military tribunals. This kind of people cannot stay quiet. They will say it is not well. They will say, okay, the entire continent will be in Cameroon. So let us come out there and tell our brothers and sisters from other parts of Africa and the rest of the world that this is what we are facing. Can you help us? Tell these people, tell this Momie Paul Biya to let us have potable water to drink, to let us have electricity to power, the economy, to power the various households, to enable children to study and prepare towards exams, to enable some sectors to stay alive, like those who sell things like fish, that's fresh fish, chicken, and the likes. When there is no electricity, what happens to their produce? These people cannot pretend to be all right. Statistics available indicate that over 50% of the people of that country live below the poverty line, that they live on less than $1 a day. And like I said previously, when they say less than $1 a day, they even give credit to think that you may have up to 300 francs. There are people in that country, and they are in a majority, who are not able to have 100 francs to buy even just gâteau, or what they call the gâteau or puff or whatsoever, to eat a day. So these people cannot pretend to be happy. They will exploit this kind of opportunities to raise their issues, to let the world know that it is not well with them, in the pious hope that because of this, Mr. Paul Biya and his corrupt administration may decide to sit back and say, no, we need to do something, that something has got to be done. So when I see a member of parliament, a representative of the people, the same people who are facing all these wars and all these sufferings, come out, and especially of the opposition, to say, no, don't do this, then you ask yourself, is he still in the opposition? If he's still in the opposition, how exactly is he contributing? So these are issues that need to, these are questions that need to be asked. And while I was still looking at Nincho, I also saw this one come from Maurice Kamto. And I said, okay, plus ça change, plus ça reste la même chose. Why do I say plus ça change, plus ça reste la même chose? This is because, as a matter of fact, a lot will expect Mr. Kamto to, join hands, join forces with Nincho, so that they try to see exactly how to, take advantage of this opportunity to tell the world about the problems that the people are facing. But he also dodges. Kamto says here, aucun membre du directoire, aucun cadre du MRC au Cameroun ou de la diaspora ne doit tenir des propos désobligeants. Ne doit tenir des propos désobligeants sur la Can Total Energies au Cameroon. In effect, he says, if the people cannot support, if the people cannot overtly go out there to cheer the AFCON, they should stay quiet. And if they cannot completely stay quiet, they should not say anything that will tarnish the image of the AFCON in Cameroon. So, is it an indication, because he also says, like Joshua Osi, that it is not Mr. Paul Biya's AFCON. Now, this begs for the wonderful question. Elsewhere in the world, where people use these opportunities to present their worries, to draw the attention of the international community to their sufferings, to their difficulties and all whatnot, is it because the people are not thinking of the image of whatsoever? Curious. And that is why I said earlier that Jean-Michel Ninchu is a real representative of the people. And then you see, this again is another interesting development. The government of Cameroon, through the director of the civil cabinet at the presidency of the Republic of La République du Cameroon, dishing out instructions to the Secretary General to set aside resources to bring into the country, with effect from yesterday, because that was yesterday, January 5. If I'm not mistaken, yes, that was January. Is it January 6? Yes, like it's January 6. Exactly, January 6. So these ladies must have left Paris today or are about to leave Paris. I think they must have left Paris already at this hour for Cameroon. And so the instruction is given that these 3 women should be shipped on board a special flight. And they should be attributed tickets on business class. It is very specific. All 3 are from Beti extraction. As you can see the names there, they read Zombo. Yeah, you have Zomo, you have Biakmen, Mbiai Law Patricia, you have Zomo Ben, Aline Marie Christine, and below, Efwa Elizabeth. And they will be in Cameroon from January 6 to February 10. To and fro, they should be in business class. Business class. The fare will be paid by the Cameroon government. Certainly, they are going to be lodged to in a special hotel paid by the Cameroon government. So what is amiss? What is it about these ladies? Affair à suivre. And so I move out of there and onto another aspect that consecrates the defeat that we are talking about. The low morale that is characteristic today of La République du Cameroon and the citizens. You see, the AFCON is yet to begin. But the edgy administration, the edgy system has already started with motions of support. While in Douala, the divisional officer of Douala 1 is saying no demonstrations, be them peaceful or otherwise, nothing. In Victoria, the senior divisional officer is declaring ghost towns, no movements and all of those things, and suspending the activities of motorbikes and all, not putting, the lives of their families in jeopardy because they are not going to have food. They are going to lose tremendously at the time they rather ought to make money. So it's a very bad economic decision. But in Bafia, in the center region, there's a lady who calls herself Zinchem Bojomart. She is president of a CPDM section, and she's calling on all the militants of that party at that section. Of course, they were on the streets of Bafia today. Today, Thursday, January 6th. So, and what was the intention? Going out to thank the head of state, Mr. Paul Biya, for a successful hosting of the AFCON. Oh my goodness. Did you hear that? The AFCON has not started. No. I'm saying the AFCON has not started. Yet, people have to be out there on the streets, moving around in total fiesta to thank and congratulate Mr. Paul Biya for a successful hosting of the AFCON. That's amazing. But while they are already thinking that they should celebrate what they usually call that la fête avant la fête, that the feast before the feast, while they are preparing to, feast, the Gabonese delegation to that same AFCON is telling us something else. Just watch.
Oui, c'est vraiment grave ici à l'hôtel La Falaise. Les Gabonais refusent l'hôtel La Falaise. Donc c'est vraiment très grave. Donc ce que vous êtes en train de voir là, c'est ce que nous sommes en train de vivre ici. C'est vraiment grave.
So the Gabonese squad to that AFCON, they say they are not interested. In fact, they say they will not accept to be lodged in Hotel La Falaise. This Hotel La Falaise is situated around Carrefour Wada. If you know Carrefour Wada, so they're situated around Carrefour Wada. I mean, that is the itinerary that Mr. Paul Biya uses when he goes in and out of the country. And so the Gabonese delegation says, you promised us that we were going to lodge in 5-star hotels, but this Hotel La Falaise doesn't meet the standards. And so the delegation refused to lodge there. Just look at the video before you look at the kind of objects that you are seeing around the area where a delegation, a foreign delegation, has to lodge. So when they talk about preparedness, when they talk about readiness, just look at garbage all over the place. Oh my goodness. Yet my people, there's someone somewhere saying they should get out to the streets already to celebrate and congratulate Mr. Paul Biya for a successful hosting of the AFCON. Look, my people, I've not forgotten that the main thrust of this recording today is a careful analysis of some of the salient issues raised and discussed by Mr. Tibor Nagy, the former U.S. Undersecretary for African Affairs at the Bureau of African Affairs at the U.S. State Department, Honorable Tibor Nagy. So we will be getting into that in the next 3 or so minutes. Just time for us to get a good laugh here. Listen, this document you see on your screen is a decree. That decree is not signed by Mr. Paul Biya. This decree this time is signed by the Speaker of the National Assembly, Kavae Yege Jibril. In this decree, which is signed on January 3, 2022, Kavae Yege Jibril is creating an extension office of Cameroon's National Assembly in the far north, in Maroua. Yeah, that's what he says. Il s'est créé une antenne de l'Assemblée nationale chargée des affaires réservées du président de l'Assemblée nationale à Maroua, région de l'extrême nord. So he's creating an extension office of the National Assembly that would take charge of the very private issues of the Speaker of the National Assembly in Maroua. Why is it significant? It is significant because Mr. Kavae Yege Jibril is from the far north of Cameroon. The chief town of the far north is Maroua. He's based particularly in Tokombere, so he will generally move from Tokombere to work in Maroua. So, because of age, they are all tired. Paul Biya has moved his own extension office of the Unity Palace from Yaoundé to Mvomeka. That is where he is, permanently, no longer in Yaoundé. So Kavae Yege Jibril said, what is good for the goose is good for the gander. So he too has moved his own office of the National Assembly from Yaoundé to Maroua. So that soon you will not find Kavae Yege Jibril again in Yaoundé. So I guess the next person in line to doing that will soon be Nyat Njifendi Marcel, who will also, I beg your pardon, create an extension of the Senate in Bafoussam. chief town of the West region where he hails from. So that from Bagante, he would drive just a few minutes, about 30, 40 minutes, to Bafusam and sit there and all things. Yeah, what is good for the goose is good for the gander. And so perhaps the only person who will be in difficulty is John Gute. Poor John. Will he be able to create an extension of the Prime Minister's office in Boya? Oh, if he does, will he be able to settle in Dian, in Bogongo village? If he does that, it will take him a whole day to drive from Bogongo to Boya. If he does that. So it will be easier to drive from Boya to Yaoundé than to drive from Bogongo to Boya. Oh, poor John. Can he even go? Well, that is the Republic of the Old. That is what is happening with our noisy neighbors. So, my people of the southern Cameroons, let's move now to the crux of the matter. Like I pointed out, we are going to be examining some aspects of the speech or of the conversation Honorable Tibor Nagy had with our own comrade Chris Anu. So, let's look at the first excerpt where Honorable Tibor Nagy talks about the diaspora and other actors as a role that communities, the diaspora, and all not play in the shaping of the U.S. foreign policy. This is very fundamental. Just listen.
Everybody thinks that the United States, it's the president who makes foreign policy, which is not true. In the United States, there are many, many components that figure into making foreign policy. Congress has a great deal. The private sector, businesses have a great deal, but also the communities. And as you well know, being in Houston, that those African diasporas that are politically active have a great deal of political influence with American politicians. Everybody thinks that the United States, it's the president who makes foreign policy, which is...
Now, let us look at that statement. Mr. Tibor Nagy says, everybody thinks in the United States it is a president that makes the foreign policy. And he says, but that is not true. And he goes ahead to explain to us the various facets and actors that participate in shaping the U.S. foreign policy. Now, why is this important? This is important because when Chris Anu evokes somewhere later Resolution 684 from the U.S. Senate, it is because the way U.S. foreign policy is shaped is such that about all the arms of government and even the business communities and the local communities, in the case of African countries or countries out of the United States, even diasporans of those countries in the United States have a great influence. Now, this is important because it takes us back to Resolution 684. I had pointed out on this platform that the United States of America actually did already shape and define its policy with respect to the situation in the southern Cameroons within the framework of Resolution 684. Prior to that resolution, Congress or the Senate at some points issued simple statements of condemnation, statements observing that this or that thing is not going on well, maybe calling all the belligerents to come to good sentiments, good spirits, and sit around and have a conversation. But Resolution 684 departed from all of this because Resolution 684 was giving directives to the executive, a clear understanding of how it goes. And that is why in the next excerpt, we will hear Honorable Tibor Nagy, or in one of the excerpts, point out exactly how this plays out. Because if we miss the understanding of this, we continue to believe, like La République du Cameroun and France want us to do, that the policy of the United States currently is the same as what Honorable Tibor Nagy has said at one point in Congress, that it was going to be unrealistic to think of an independent Southern Cameroon's Akamba zone. But Resolution 684 departed completely from that. And if you get back to the wordings of Resolution 684, which was voted unanimously by all 100 US senators, both Republicans and Democrats. So it's a bipartisan resolution, which indicates, therefore, that whatever administration is in place, they will use that as a working document. Because in that resolution, Congress, the Senate actually instructs, take this action, take that action, get the parties to do this, collaborate with other international partners to attain this or that objective. This is very important. And how did they come about that resolution? A lot of inputs in that resolution came from Southern Cameroonian diasporans in the United States, across the board, who contributed through their members of Congress, through their senators, through various forms. And so this is something we must understand. And I want to take this opportunity to congratulate all those Southern Cameroonians who did not wait to go through their groups or to go through various groups, movements, and organizations prosecuting the Southern Cameroon Liberation Movement before reaching out to these people. They did a lot of individual actions. And I want to congratulate each and every one of you, because that is the way to go. And exactly that is what Honorable Tibor Nagy says. It is not the responsibility of the President of the United States alone to determine the foreign policy of the United States of America. Let's move on to the next excerpt and we'll listen to him.
Well, when I was in service, the U.S. government position was we very much supported the entirety of the Cameroonian state, and we urged the Cameroonian government to do everything possible to resolve the long-standing issue with the Anglophone areas. So basically, it was a message of please do everything possible to solve this problem before it does get to the point where there's going to be a secession between the two parts of Cameroon. Well, when I was in service...
So, I'm sorry for that little technical glitch there. So you notice what he says here. And I want us to lay emphasis on worse. He says, when he was Under Secretary for African Affairs, at that time, the policy of the United States was to see Cameroon remain one. Perhaps if you didn't grasp that, let me play this back for the purposes of clarity.
The U.S. government position was we very much supported the entirety of the Cameroonian state, and we urged the Cameroonian government to do everything possible to resolve the long-standing issue with the Anglophone areas. So basically, it was a message of please do everything possible to solve this problem before it does get to the point where there's going to be a secession between the two parts of Cameroon. Well,
now, you heard him now very well. 3 words: was, urged, supported. This is past tense. That position has evolved. And you hear what he says and ends up. He says, do this before it gets to a situation where the two parts have to go their separate ways. Listen, my people. Foreign policy, just like any other policy for every country, is dynamic, never static. Foreign policy often is informed and shaped by the exact situation on the ground, by what is happening on the ground wherever this thing is happening. In this case, it is in the Southern Cameroons. The situation on the ground in the Southern Cameroons has evolved tremendously from the time Honorable Tibor Nagy made this statement and from the time he was still in office. And even by the time he left office, Resolution 684 was already voted into law. We have seen this same Honorable Tibor Nagy go after France a couple of times to draw the attention of the global community that France was involved in double standards with respect to the situation in the southern Cameroons. And by going after France, he has constantly tried to draw our attention to the fact that the real opponent of the freedom of the people of the southern Cameroons is not even just La République. That Biya and La République are just a proxy. The real elephant in the house is France. He has done that constantly. And so today, when he says, at that time, it was to see, the entire unit remain as one. But that doesn't seem to be the situation right now. And so at that time, they urged the government to take certain measures to avert a situation where there will be a kind of deterioration, to avert a situation where they will end up with Ambazonia. And that's why he says at the time, we supported that position. But again, the United States of America, as a global actor, will not do it for us. They will only come to accompany the actions that we take both home and abroad. The foreign policy of the United States towards the situation of the southern Cameroons will be informed by a de facto situation that we create that will cause the country to move. We'll be informed by the actions we take in holding conversations with influential members of the business community, with local politicians, with members of Congress, with members of the Senate, with officials at the State Department. It's a culmination of all this that will shape and keep reshaping and modifying the position of the United States of America vis-a-vis the situation in the southern Cameroons. So this is a clear indication, my people, that we as a people have to continue playing our role, and that our freedom depends on us. No one will come replace us in doing it for us, but they can accompany the actions that we take that will help in getting us to where we intend to get to. We should not always forget that for now, La République du Cameroon is a sovereign nation with diplomatic representations in all of these countries and with easy access, I beg your pardon, to most of those offices than we. Sorry about that. Than we would have. So consequent on that, we have to explore all the other avenues open to us. And that is why early in the struggle, our people in Boston had a greater vision. That's why they constituted themselves and we began raising money and proposed it to the consortium at the time that we should hire a firm, a reputable law firm, to help us knock and open some of the doors where we need to have access to tell our story, to raise our argument, to present what we can present, to do what is called international relations, the giving and taking. But unfortunately, because of our divisiveness, because of the greed that some of us had for power and things like that, we killed this dream midway when it was already yielding fruits. Because myself sitting here, I want to say it unequivocally that while our relationship with Foley and Hawk Law Firm lasted, we had access to the U.S. State Department. Because I've seen some statements out there claiming that they barricaded themselves, they put security operatives and everything around themselves, and had a serious administrative machinery barring them from being able to, or barring us from being able to get to them. But hell no, you know exactly how to burrow through those barriers. Those are SOPs. Standard operating procedures exist in every domain, and be able to do that. I flew in from Nigeria in 2017 and was ushered into the State Department, the Bureau of African Affairs, where we had the opportunity to talk with key stakeholders there. At that time, Honorable Tibor Nagy was still being confirmed in Senate to come take over the office from the then chief of head of the Bureau of African Affairs, whom we met. My people, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We just need to have a clear understanding of how the international system functions and work in that light. We can't sit in our cocoon and think that we'll do things our way and then things will just happen to us. No, that is exactly the message that I get from this excerpt by Honorable Tibor Nagy. Let me take us to the next one, which is equally very important.
Let's also talk about Cameroon itself, because for the United States, it is a very complicated relationship with Cameroon, because as you well know, there's two conflicts going on in Cameroon. One of them is very much part of the global fight against extremism, which is in far north part of Cameroon, Lake Chad area, at Boko Haram, ISIS affiliates there. So in that regard, the United States had to work very closely with the Cameroonian state to help Cameroon fend off the extremists. Then on the other hand, you have this horrendous problem going on in Anglophone part of Cameroon, where the Cameroonian government is in effect at a certain conflict with its own population. So the United States, on the one hand, had to work cooperatively with the Cameroonians on the northern problem, but at the same time, take them to task for committing human rights violations, excuse me, and violence against the Anglophone population.
So, this is another very important thing that we need to note. Because the way a good lot of our people look at international relations is like we think that because we are Amazonians, because we are Southern Cameroonians, because our case is too clear and speaks for itself, because the United Nations General Assembly voted massively in favor of our independence, because the boundaries of La République du Cameroon were frozen on January 1, 1960, when they attained independence, and that boundary does not include the Southern Cameroons, and our case is so clear, therefore, the rest of the world should just start marching towards us. Hell no, my people. Over time, a good lot of things had happened. And so, our voice needs to be bold, strong, and matched by specific actions to cause the world to decide to look back at what happened before, to examine the root causes of what is happening, of where we are now, and to determine that the true and only course of action is to ensure that we put an end to this unacceptable and this non-working relationship with La République du Cameroon. That is how things happen. Therefore, for now, the United States of America has a partnership with La République du Cameroon in the far north of the country. But they also have a responsibility to see that the people of the Southern Cameroons who are raising serious issues be listened to. And that what La République du Cameroon is doing in the Southern Cameroons is contrary to, the kind of values that the United States of America holds dear. Therefore, not only the United States of America, but every other country that we have to deal with will also find itself in this kind of ambiguous situation. Because a good lot of them have diplomatic relations with Cameroon, and Cameroon is a sovereign nation. Therefore, the onus is on us, the people of the Southern Cameroons, to create conditions necessary for most of these countries, therefore, to see reason to spite their diplomatic friend or ally Cameroon and pay attention to us. This is very important. Let me go back just slightly to what Honorable Tibor Nagy said concerning the situation in Somaliland. He made clear the United States currently The policy of the country currently is getting more and more favorable towards recognition of Somaliland as a free and sovereign state. But at the moment, Somaliland is already self-governing. He used the terms that are generally used in that sector. One, Somaliland is de facto a free and independent country. But de jure, they are not. And why are they not yet de jure? Because de jure now comes with what is called recognition. So, my people, we should inform ourselves with the understanding of this to see, therefore, why some actors on the international scene, in the international community, operate the way they operate vis-a-vis the Southern Cameroon struggle for freedom. I want to go back particularly to relations between La République du Cameroon and Nigeria and the people of the Southern Cameroons and Nigeria. Often, we have just felt that because we had once been on Nigeria before leaving to go be with La République du Cameroon, and then we have to be on our own, and Nigeria knows that Nigeria is very informed. Nigeria should just take a certain course of action. Hell no. They still have diplomatic relations with La République du Cameroon. And therefore, there are certain approaches that we must take in seeking the support of Nigeria. There are certain approaches we must take in seeking the support of any other sovereign nation. State recognition takes time. And it will inform us, therefore, that if Somaliland, that is already a de facto free country, still grapples for recognition, how much more of us, where we are yet to get to that de facto situation? Talk less of now wanting to cross to the de jure level. So these things, I don't want to move too fast because there are other things he says ahead that will help explain some of the kind of actions that we've talked before that need to be taken to embolden our determined march towards freedom as we search towards the desire of a majority of the people of the Southern Cameroons. I see some people even get offended that he's been referring to us as Anglophones. But mind you, he has even referred to us in tweets as Ambazonia. He's referred to us in tweets as Southern Cameroons. These things evolve. What is in a name? Yeah, a name is important. Important because when we say Anglophones, it's like we're defined by language. We are not defined by language. But all the same, it's a process. It's an evolution. We definitely will get to that point where even some of the greatest nations of the world will begin addressing us, not even Southern Cameroons, but Ambazonia. It requires us to get into the trenches and do the heavyweight lifting and do it right. That is when and only when they will begin to see us not just as a stake, that's the way we are saying now, but as a stakeholder. That is what we should be striving to do. That's where we should be striving to get to. Now, let us listen to the last excerpt on today's analysis. Like I said, we're going to do this in 3 parts. Here we go.
The Anglophone population, do they have any kind of a hierarchy of leadership that could participate in some kind of a conference? Or is it a totally divided, grouping where you have different people speaking for themselves? In other words, it is much easier to have some kind of a genuine conference if you're sitting across from somebody who absolutely represents their side. Right now, I understand that the Cameroonian government can play all kinds of games by, having these conferences, and then the people they're talking to do they really have real power? Do they have representation? Do they have a constituency? We can talk about surveys, but who knows the correctness of the data that's behind the surveys? In other words, to have a real summit to have a real process that will lead to an outcome, you need to have participants who represent somebody. So I don't personally, and even while I was in office, I never got a sense of the Anglophone side and who represents who. Now, as you well know, whenever there's an independence struggle, what usually happens, unfortunately, is that sooner or later the most violent group takes charge of the entire independence struggle. You know, we've seen that over and over and over again. And is that what is happening in this struggle? I don't know. Number two, is the Cameroonian diaspora, especially in the United States, are they united? Because as you well know, the Ethiopian diaspora is terribly divided. You know, you have two segments that are much as war at each other with words as the sides there. Are there genuine representatives of the Cameroonian diaspora that can engage with U.S. Political forces, whether it's members of Congress or going to the State Department and talking? Because as you well know, in America, our politicians pay attention to the voters. Our politicians pay attention to political forces because the United States has so many interests around the world, and they take up so much of the attention of the United States that unless there is a political force behind any particular issue, it is not going to be looked at in a long-term serious way. So those are the questions, you know, that the American government would have to see. Number one, are the Anglophones united in the solution that they absolutely want? Number two, are there genuine representatives of the Anglophone population who really do speak for the entire population as opposed to a small group? And number three, has the Cameroonian government absolutely just played games and not been serious in any kind of process, so that the Anglophones have absolutely every right to take their grievances on the road to independence, so that it would eventually lead to an independent Ambazonia? The Anglophone population.
Now, we all heard him. For those who are saying he kept talking just about Anglophones and all whatnot, you heard him at the end talking about an independent Ambazonia. I just go back to what he said towards the end. He is talking here of there be clear evidence before the rest of the world that the people of the southern Cameroons have done all that it takes to resolve this issue with the Republic of Cameroon, but the Republic of Cameroon has only played games continually, and at the end of the day, the center of gravity can no longer hold, to the point where it becomes clear in the eyes and minds of everybody on the international scene that these two entities would better live in peace as separate entities. That is how we emerge into Ambazonia. He makes it clear there is a path, and we have a path. He doesn't say at any point, like I see on some platforms, people try to claim that we don't have a path. He makes clear we have a path. But unfortunately, Honorable Tibor Nagy says something that a good lot of us don't like to hear. And that thing is that we have to have order in our movement. By order doesn't mean coercing people to pay allegiance to your group by way of saying that this is how we have order. No. Whether we like it or not, on the international scene, they still see us as fragments, in various groups. You may scream at the top of your voice all you care. 95% of the people are with me, or even 98%. You ask the same question that I even asked here, on scientific surveys, that nobody knows and all or not certain things. So, my people, the one thing we had to do, and which we started doing well, but deviated, and that we must do again, is to ensure that there is synergy in our ranks. Listen, What Honorable Tibor Nagy says here as being the importance of that synergy is the fact that we will have a unique message, a unique and discernible position, a very clear-cut policy direction that everywhere on the, in the world, people will know this is where we are headed. But today, the way we're operating like crabs in a bucket. When one group wants to show the head up, the others drag it down. When one group wants to move this way because others want to hang on you, they fall off. This is what has been happening. And so, it is felt on the international scene because one group says A, the next one says B. One group says C, the next one says E. And so, you sit in your office, you are an international civil servant, you have one group enters, oh, we are from Amazonia, we have come to talk about this. You see, we absolutely want our independence. We don't even want anything like Republic du Cameroon anymore. We just want our independence. What we want is tell the Republic to leave our territory. Say, oh wow, this is it. As they step out, perhaps 2 days after the next group comes in, we are also from Southern Cameroon. And say, oh really? Oh yes. Oh okay. Some people came here before. Oh, those people, they don't speak for us. We don't even know them. They are not part of us. Disregard anything that they have told you. And then you start now your own story. Oh yes, we want the Republic of Cameroon to be dragged to a negotiation table as fast as possible so that we can. By the time you finish going, the next group comes in on the third day. Oh yes, we are also from the Southern Cameroon. We are from the Southern Cameroon, from Amazonia. We are the main people. We have the biggest force on the ground. We have this and that. We are the ones who are everywhere and all whatnot. So, in fact, if you want to see the true representative of Southern Cameroonians, here we are. And then you're like, oh, but I had 2 different delegations say, oh no, those people, how many people do they represent? Who is with them? How many people do they have as their membership? They don't have anyone. And so, we continue shooting ourselves in the leg day after day. And we come and sit in our homes and say, I'm fighting too hard for this struggle. We will not get there. No. We will not get there as fast as we should get to our destination. We will be slowed down because we confuse those who are supposed to support us. So this is what Honorable Tibor Nagy is saying. And for that reason, the Republic of Cameroon jumps behind to say they are just a bunch of dislocated sets of people dotted here and there who are trying to, challenge the status quo. That's what they are saying. We all know that that's not true. So my people, like him or hate him, he has simply said what a lot of other international stakeholders before him have told us to our faces. In Toronto, we spent time hearing only this from all the diplomats that were there, be it the British diplomat, the US diplomats, the Canadian diplomats, the German diplomats, the Swiss diplomat, all of them said the same thing. And when they say it, rather than take time to digest this lesson, we are quick to come and say, oh, why are they saying so? We are already there. Our group has 95% is saying. Can they see that? No, they can't see that. They can't see that. No. As long as they keep receiving delegation after delegation, when people come in sometimes, one group will come with 24 pages of document. I expect them to read, oh my goodness. Another group comes with 10 pages. The next one comes with threats. No, it doesn't work. That cacophony doesn't help us. The singular message he's saying at this point is, we should, my people, build some kind of synergy. Once we build a kind of synergy, our various groups can still exist. They will, of course, still exist. The various groups, movements, and organizations. But we will have a body. Like we had the governing council. When we created the governing council in Canaan land at conclave number 3 and brought in Sisiku Julius Ayuktabe, he could speak for all the movements. Because all the movements, groups, and organizations were represented in the governing council. Even if there were still some few pockets of resistance from the Comrade Chua Yaba's ADC at the time, but there were still openings. Because just take a look at this. When we met in New York on September 22, 2017 for the global march for Ambazonia. We didn't care who was from what group or who was from whatever group. Comrade Ayaba was there. He made a speech. Comrade Akwanga made a speech. Comrade Ayuktabe came, made a speech. And of course, there was this synergy. It wasn't 100%, but we were about to get there. Unfortunately, Zaria destroyed everything as we now moved from having this kind of body, this kind of, call it a consular body, that enabled all the groups, movements to do their things, but still congregate within this structure for a clear-cut and well-defined policy. It was working, but unfortunately, we went into the era of absolutism. And it finally doesn't work. But there's another route that he points out, of course, which is the route that a lot have pointed fingers at Comrade Ayaba and the AGC are wanting to take, of wanting to emerge by force. But my people, the Southern Cameroon situation is unlike previous situations before where that kind of occurrence, made sense. We are by nature a pluralist and democratic set of people. For that reason, our things are definitely different. And don't also forget, we are dealing today in an age of, multimedia, where you have a lot of social media platforms out there enabling people to express themselves one way or the other, so you can no longer stifle. It's not like in the days of Johannes Savimbi, the whatever. It's no longer that. Things have evolved. And so for that reason, we have a clear-cut option before us. Regroup back. Why not perhaps get to another conclave and try to put back in place that coordinating body that will ensure synergy, such that the delegations that will go to most of these international offices will be a delegation from that body. And so it will be one language. It will be the same position. It will be just one thing that is being said. And the rest of the world will begin to see some kind of organization, and there's greater traction. And this bunching together will easily confer that legitimacy or that representation that is being talked about sometimes. And once we do that too, of course, you get reverberation from ground zero, where the people too will now show more and more that they are excited about this. So if you say your group has 95% or 98% representation on the ground, and almost 100% of the people want synergy, and you are against synergy, that's contradiction. This is why, my people, we have to understand that it makes a lot of sense for us not to be seeking to justify that, no, we have leadership, we have this and that. We don't have. We just need to draw the lessons from this and act fast by doing the needful and putting in place what we need to put in place and get going. I don't think the Honorable Tibor Nagy was doubting or casting a doubt on the results of the various surveys. He just made a statement that there is something we can do which is greater than just those surveys. It is this kind of action. Have harmony in the way our case is presented. When we show this degree of order, we will be able to overcome a major challenge. My people, take this home. The greatest fright La République du Cameroon has is our synergy. The greatest pain in the fabrics or in the spines of La République du Cameroon is us working together and coming together. If you doubt it, look at when we had the Washington Collaborative Conference. We said everybody was together. Shock waves were thrown to the La République du Cameroon system. They fought it until we were able to resuscitate again with the ASCPC, with the All Southern Cameroon People's Conference, where we were able again to, use that occasion to birth the SCLC, the Southern Cameroon's Liberation Council. And when we put in place the Southern Cameroon Liberation Council, trust me, there were already movements on the international scene. It was like, oh, great, they have now come together. But unfortunately, it didn't last because the enemy keeps doing everything to rip us apart. They will use every actor. Take note. France, La République du Cameroon, those are the forces behind all this. So they'll continue to do everything to rip us apart. Therefore, it is incumbent on us to recognize that this is our strength, and that is what they will attack most. And we'll do everything to make sure we exploit that strength and put in place safeguards to maintain that strength. That is the biggest channel we have to use. I watched some videos just before coming onto this set with our brother No PT and his people putting order in their own life where they are. And as soon as they are doing that, I see some messages from the diaspora already questioning who sent him, who asked him to leave Kotunja to Bui, who asked him, sorry, please, we have one Southern Cameroons, one. This is what Honorable Tibor Nagy is talking about. We can't have a Southern Cameroons of villages, a Southern Cameroons of every LGA having its autonomy or every county having its autonomy and coming to say, no, this one says A, that one says no, B, this one says, no, don't come to my territory, you can't come here because, hell no. We need freedom and we need synergy to get that freedom. So diasporans, let us do what Honorable Tibor Nagy says. Let us intensify the lobbying. Let us intensify the lobbying. Allow No Peter and his folks to be doing their own thing that they are doing where they are doing it. And encourage them to come together because togetherness is our strength. Synergy is our way to go. I will be right back on the set this Friday late evening, Friday, January 7th late evening, with part 2 of this analysis. I want to thank all of you who found time to be part of this broadcast today. Wish you a wonderful evening. Let's continue to pray for our people on Ground Zero, and let's continue to be committed to our collective quest for freedom. To God be all the glory.